So if you attended the Overthinking It panel at SGC, you'd know that Zelda 1 is my absolute favorite from the series. And in fact, it's really the only one from the franchise that I can just pop in and play at any given moment and enjoy no matter what. Which is funny, because when I was in elementary school, I totally despised it. Today it's hailed as a flawed masterpiece, as a prototype that would give way to much better games that would come much later. But what if I told you that it's not as flawed as you might think, and that the children it sired aren't as cherub-faced as you've come to believe? Wait, so I'm comparing two titles from the same franchise in this episode? Wow, this show really is a low-rent sequelitis ripoff. So Zelda 1 has its problems. Really big problems that are stupid and silly and need to be fed dog food in the attic because they can't be shown in public. The translation is bogus, some of the puzzles are downright stupid, and Heil Hitler. Even so, it still makes a lot of cool design choices, even if the execution isn't spot on. Zelda 1 is all about exploration, and it bends over backwards to reinforce and reward a player for their exploration. From the get-go, you're just dropped into the middle of the map without any instruction, and the only way to learn about the game is through exploration. You'll probably wander around aimlessly and get your butt handed to you, but that's fine. The game balances its lack of direction by lowering its penalty for death. The game desperately doesn't want the player to be too afraid to explore uncharted territory, so dying 15 times in a row in the same dungeon isn't a terribly huge deal. You have infinite lives, so losing your shield to a like is actually more frustrating than dying is. Every Zelda game since has pretty much taken this concept as a given. Well, except for Zelda 2. I want to like you, but you're so stupid. Hey, I like Zelda 2. No, you're just stupid. Now, a bunch of designers argue that if you're going to demand a player to explore, it's usually not a bad idea to periodically reward the player with cool discoveries. You want to get the player saying to themselves, good things happen when I explore, so I want to explore more. Zelda 1 nails this with the amount of secrets it packs into its overworld. Believe it or not, on average, over 1/3 of the 128 overworld screens in this game hides an optional secret. That's ridiculous for an 8-bit title. Now, most players will never find most of those, but there's just so many out there that they are bound to find a few, which will make them want to look for more. Another neat thing that reinforces exploration is that you can actually get the white sword, magic shield, and blue ring all before you ever set foot inside a single dungeon. No cheats, no glitches, just simply playing the game as it is right out of the box. Could you imagine rocking your second sword, tunic, and shield all before you complete your first dungeon in a Zelda game today? That'd be so weird and rad, right? And if you're feeling quite surly after getting these 3 items, you can actually demolish Dungeon 2 before you ever stumble across Dungeon 1. What's that? You can't seem to find Dungeon 2? Yeah, neither could I on my first time through. No problem though, because the game will let you beat Dungeons 3 through 8 without ever having to blink an eye at 2. Oh, and if you want to do it that way, you should probably do Dungeon 6 after you do 7 and 8, because 6 is like the hardest freaking one. Seriously, I actually know people that just gave up on doing 6 their first time through the game, and went on their merry way beating 7 and 8 before going back to Dungeon 6. I was one of those people. This game is designed to allow for that much non-linearity. It's freaking sweet! And it's in an 8-bit title! What? At the start of the game, you're just dropped into the middle of the map with no instruction. It's up to you to decide where to go, what to do, and when to do it. It's okay if you discover the dungeons out of order. It's fine if you want to do half of Dungeon 2 before hopping back to beat 1. Or if you want to complete 4 and 5 before finally going back and beating Dungeon 2. It all reinforces that central concept of exploration. And that's not all. Another thing that reinforces and encourages the whole idea of aimless exploration is that they don't really even give you a map. This layout in the upper left-hand corner gives you a general idea of where you are in the landscape, but it doesn't show you where anything else is. It's up to you to find the landmarks and take note of them. A bunch of people made hand-drawn maps on graph paper back in the day, which is pretty sweet, but it's actually not that hard to make an accurate mental map of everything. Hyrule might seem like a super big and scary place at first, but after some hardy adventuring and this little icon giving you a general idea of where you are, it won't be long before you begin to intuit the bigger picture and get a sense of where you have and haven't been. You simply get better at navigating the game as you play it. What a novel concept! And it's actually kind of fun to go from being a scared little guy with a wooden sword who knows absolutely nothing about the world map, to being a raft-riding, boomerang-throwing, periwinkle tunic-wearing adventurer, able to navigate your way across all corners of the globe like a total stud muffin. Yeah, I can find my way through the Lost Woods. That's a turn on, right? Yeah, you like that? While Zelda 1 did everything in its power from the get-go to let the player know that it's okay to just explore and do things out of order, A Link to the Past takes a much different tack. From the start, it plays and appears incredibly linear, and you're not allowed to really explore much of the overworld until you rescue Zelda from the dungeon. After which point your map, I forgot to mention, this game also gives you a pretty large detailed Mode 7 map, so no need for you to explore and create your own mental one, because this game's got that covered. Anyway, so after you rescue Zelda, your map is marked with all the places that you need to go. You're supposed to talk to this old hag in the village, so X marks the spot. You're supposed to talk to this old fop in a cave, so X marks the spot. You're supposed to get these pendants from the bosses of the first 3 dungeons, so let's just mark their exact location with 3 large Mode 7 pendant icons on your large Mode 7 map. Hey, but they're all marked on my map at the same time. Maybe that means I can enter and complete them out of order. No, not really. I mean, you can do like 75% of a dungeon and get the treasure and then exit it, but once you're already that far into a large multi-tiered dungeon, it's not all that advantageous to exit unless you're restocking potions. So after a few hours of a much more linear and streamlined quest, you get to the Dark World, and you have to beat the current dungeon before it shows you the location of the next. And after having to do everything up to this point in order, a player can reasonably deduce that you have to do these numbered Dark World dungeons in order as well. But no! Now for some reason, a third of the way through the game, A Link to the Past is finally letting you explore and do dungeons out of order, which would be rad, except it gives you every indication that you're still largely stuck on a linear track. And they even number the Dark World dungeons. Zelda, baby, you're giving me mixed messages! You shouldn't do that to a playa! Don't speak in Ebonics ever again. Well, it's not a terribly huge deal, and I'm one of the only 3 losers in the world who really care about any of this. You can see that A Link to the Past's design choices are quite a bit different from those of Zelda 1's. And in some cases, it can be argued that some of A Link to the Past's design choices conflict with each other. Right? Please don't hate me. I hate you. And another thing, in Zelda 1, most of the time if you were stuck, exploring would fix that problem right quick. In A Link to the Past though, there's no need for that silly exploration business. What is this, the 1980s? Just go to a fortune teller and drop a few rubies, you schmuck. But I'll tell you exactly what you need to do or where to go without any ambiguity. Wait, what? A hint system in a Zelda game? That solves a bunch of the puzzles for you? Wasn't the internet up in arms about this sort of thing being in the Ocarina of Time remake? But they conveniently forgot about the fortune and storytellers who provide a much similar service in this game? Seriously, I'm not stretching on this point. These guys do pretty much all the heavy lifting for you when it comes to solving the Book of Medora, Giant Bomb, Mushroom Zora, Moon Pearl, Aghanim, Well Chest, Blacksmith, and Graveyard puzzles in this game. Why were the Sheikah Stones Satan, but the fortune teller is cool? Internet, I just don't get you. Goatsy. Zelda 1 also offered hints, which is probably where A Link to the Past got this idea. In Zelda 1, however, they were one of the many things that rewarded exploration, while in A Link to the Past it seems like the hints are in place to avoid exploration. If you don't really want to invest time into aimlessly exploring and finding things, you can just throw some rubies at these guys and they might throw you a bone back. Now, I'm not saying this is bad, in fact, I'm totally fine with there being a hint system in a game like this, but it's really obvious that these 2 games place value and emphasis on different things. Even Miyamoto himself talked about this. Regarding Zelda 1's development, he once said this: "We started to work on The Legend of Zelda at the same time as Super Mario Bros. And since the same teams did both games, we tried to separate the different ideas. Super Mario Bros. Should be linear. The Legend of Zelda should be the total opposite." But you can see that the design philosophy of the series had drastically shifted as early as 1992. When being interviewed about A Link to the Past, Miyamoto said, "We've actually tried to make it as easy as possible. The way the game is structured, you can't take alternative routes to finish the game. If mainstream games players could cope with less linear adventures though, we might have made it a lot harder." The Zelda series went from being opaque, open world, and cryptic to being very accessible, linear, and streamlined. A Link to the Past takes a very start to finish approach, while Zelda 1 is more like you're in the center working your way outward. They employ 2 different design philosophies, and one is not inherently superior to the other. But much like Zelda 1, A Link to the Past seems a little bit confused at times. A Link to the Past rewards exploration, but it also rewards not exploration. It's linear for a while until it's not, and it doesn't tell you when. You can explore, but a lot of the cool landmarks are kinda given away because map. A Link to the Past is a freaking masterpiece! You have no idea what you're talking about! I'm not saying you're not allowed to like Link to the Past, and I'm not saying A Link to the Past is terrible. It does a lot of cool things, it's just a few of these cool things arguably conflict with each other. And I'm not saying A Link to the Past should be more like Zelda 1. That'd actually be stupid. Most people hate Zelda 1. And I can't blame them. Zelda 1 is really stupid at times, but I still love it. What I'm saying is, Zelda 1 perhaps gets a little bit too much flack sometimes, and A Link to the Past isn't scrutinized as much as it perhaps should be.
It has flaws! It's true!
While we've seen Nintendo take A Link to the Past design ideas to all sorts of different places, even into the 3D realm, a lot of Zelda 1's ideas have really fallen by the wayside. In some ways, Link's Awakening is actually the closest we've gotten to a true successor to the first game. What with its different map system that kept everything hidden until after you'd explored that screen, the way it innovated and improved these side-scrolling segments with puzzles and rudimentary platforming, the fact that it hid these 26 seashells all over the world map that incentivized exploration in much the same way that the secrets in the first game did. It also put its own spin on Zelda 1's stopwatch power-up, with these temporary attack and defense boosts that enemies drop. Oh, and it also kept in the whole thing where you can pick up dropped items and rubies with your sword like in the first game. Why didn't Link to the Past have this? It's so much fun! Even so, I'd still say that Link's Awakening feels like it's much more closely related to A Link to the Past than it is Zelda 1. A lot of people argue that if you were to hand the very first Zelda game to a designer today, and tell them to make a sequel based only on that one game from the franchise, it'd probably look less like a post-80s Zelda title and more like Minecraft or Dark Souls. And I don't disagree with that sentiment. That being said, if Nintendo were to rush out and make a Zelda game like that, it'd be a stupid idea. Because as I said, nobody likes the first Zelda game, everybody loves A Link to the Past, Miyamoto's Jesus, and Sakurai is the Holy Ghost. Amen. Hey guys, Ronnie Edwards here.
My ostriches are having babies!
Okay. So I guess there are like 2 other guys that also do videos on this channel. You might want to check their stuff out. Specifically this one about how Zelda's official timeline is wrong. I don't know, I don't watch it. YouTube videos are stupid.
It has flaws! It's true!